Okay.
So, let me do the short presentation and then we ask questions.
Okay. Yeah, we can move
So,
that.
are we yet? Yes, hello, thank you and welcome to this technical briefing. Can you hear me? I hope you can hear me. I'm here with two experts from the Commission. They will explain to you what our proposal is today on wholesale markets. I just want to give you a short outline why we do that. The whole market is very new. We just have has emerged since 2000, and we have seen in the United States there have been cases of market abuse. That means that production capacities have been decreased in an artificial way, and as a result of that, the company who has done so has had huge profits, but for the consumer, this was a huge damage. We have made calculations that if the same thing like the Amaranth case would happen in Europe, this would cost European consumers 1 billion euros. The situation we face here in Europe at the moment is that we do not have any market data so as to really analyze and see if such market abuse is actually happening. It is very difficult also because much of the wholesale trading in energy is not done by power exchanges but via brokers. Our experts will give you the figure, but our estimation is that around 75% of all the wholesale in power and gas is not traded at power exchange where we have rules, but is done OTC via brokers. So our aim is to have the transparency, to have the data. We will have an agency which will be established March next year, who should have all the data possible to investigate and see whether a price increase in wholesale markets and in a later stage that will be reflected also in a consumer price is due to fundamentals or is due to market abuse. I would now invite you to send us the questions you might have, because then our experts could answer them. In the meantime, I would just invite them to give you some facts and figures on the markets while we're waiting for your questions.
Do you want to go first, Andras, on the size of the market and who's trading where?
So maybe a few words on traded electricity and gas markets. As it was pointed out, the market took up somewhere at the turn of the century, and there had been different marketplaces all around Europe and different channels through which wholesale energy trades, let's say sellers and buyers, found their way to come together. These traded volumes have, generally speaking, have developed well over time. For example, our electricity markets now have reached over total traded volume of something like 10,000 terawatt hour per year. Just to put this figure in context, we have something like around 3,000 or 3,200 terawatt hour physical consumption in Europe. So these total traded volumes now are 3 times as much as the consumption, indicating an active traded environment with numerous players buying and selling electricity. Similarly, it is true for gas, though with some time delay. I think traded gas markets have picked up a bit later, but they have developed also very well. Maybe just to point out one feature of energy markets, about traded markets. I mentioned there is multiple ways how you can trade. It is also true that the trades that relate to one country, let's say France, they tend to take place in other countries, often through marketplaces located outside of this country. In our press release, I think we have given a figure for Germany, saying that 94.94% of the volumes traded related to Germany are traded outside this country through a number of intermediaries. This means that if you only concentrate on one single marketplace, if you just look at one marketplace, you will not be able to assess and put together the totality of the trades. And this is one of the features of the markets which will have consequences for our proposals. But I mean, without sort of going into a monologue, I would reiterate again the request of Marlene. So please put your questions through the system so that we can go in and answer more specific questions of yours.
And as long as we don't have any questions, which again, so why we're here, and hopefully we're not just speaking to ourselves and somebody's actually able to hear us on the other end. You could split the logic of the new regulation or the proposed regulation into 3 parts, or 3.5 really. One being the establishment of clear definitions of what might constitute market abuse, that is inside information and trading on inside information and market manipulation. The next step being to create a monitoring framework where we can consistently look at what is happening on these markets to establish if there are reasonable suspicions of market abuse. And here's where we have established a market monitoring function in the to be established Agency for Cooperation of Regulators. It's an additional task for the agency which was established under the 3rd package. And in order to facilitate it carrying out its task, and also in order to facilitate national authorities carrying out their tasks and looking at national level markets, it has a data collection obligation, and rather market participants have an obligation to provide the agency with the data it requires for carrying out monitoring, which the agency then itself looks at as a first level of monitoring, and which is also available to member state authorities as a second level of monitoring, where they can cooperate with each other in this, and there's a secure information exchange then between the EU level and the yes, we have our first questions. And Stuart Benson asks, to clarify, glass power physical forwards are not covered by MiFID, question mark. DG Mark seems to think they are covered according to our reading. I'll let Andreas go first on this.
Yeah, so there seems to be a suggestion in this question that, let's say, physical, so if it's something physically delivered, as much of the transactions in electricity and gas, it wouldn't be qualified as financial instruments or a derivative. Well, this is not true. It can be, and to my understanding as well, they are already today defined as energy derivatives, commodity derivatives. So as such, they are instruments to which the provisions, for example, of the Market Abuse Directive apply. So it is covered.
Now, I think as well another point we could make is that the Market Abuse Directive, which I think is the more important one, covers financial instruments which are traded on organised marketplaces, and therefore it's clear that there could be substantial energy products which are not covered by MAD. We have a second question from EU Energy. The question is, when you say you have no data, what out of all the price data, price/trade data provided by price reporting agencies? I don't think we said we had absolutely no data. I think we said we had insufficient data on transactions, and it's certainly not true that the reporting agencies can provide regulators with clear data as to what has been happening on wholesale energy markets. We have essentially what they are is they make estimates of price reports of what the prices were on that particular market at any point in time. However, it's not sufficient to be able to ensure that there is that these markets are being operated with integrity and that there's sufficient transparency to regulators on this. And maybe Andras wants to pick up on that.
Just to be maybe more concrete on that, these reports don't include, for example, the parties to this transaction. So for a regulator to say whether market abuses had happened such information will be, of course, essential. So whereas on the price and the volume side, there is a certain level of transparency, what is less available is detailed information on transactions for regulators.
And on the first question, again, maybe to go back over some of the issues, I mean, we've worked very hard to ensure that we have a good and comprehensive coverage of wholesale energy markets that works well with financial products or financial instruments, and that works in a dynamic way to ensure that we get a complete and comprehensive coverage of, well, wholesale energy markets, by which I mean gas and electricity markets, whether they are derivative markets or commodity markets or markets for transportation rights and so on. This proposal should work seamlessly with the financial regulation. Hello, we have a question from Claudia Weisse, and she asks from Dow Jones in Germany. She wishes to know who will control that traders are reporting the right data, who's going to control the quality and accuracy of the reporting. Also, what are the possible options in the case of market abuse? Taking the first question, the first part of the question, who controls that the traders are reporting the correct data? Well, the obligation is will be on traders to report data, and there will be several channels by which they can do that. More detail will be specified when we look. The timing, mode, form, content is specified in a delegated act. However, the obligation to report accurate data, I think, stands. If a trader was to misreport data, that in itself could constitute market manipulation. What are the possible options in the case of market abuse? I believe you mean what are the possible enforcement options here. Well, it is for member states to define the precise penalties which have to be applied. This is a standard formulation that we've used in the regulation. One of the recitals, I think it's 23 if I remember rightly, says that they should be in line with the penalties for market abuse under the Market Abuse Directive 2003/6. The options then are that this must be, once you've indicated there's, through your monitoring exercise, that there's suspicion of market abuse, you would undergo a detailed investigation, which would be the job of the regulatory authorities, with the potential for complex cross-border cases for the agency to convene a regulatory group which would bring together concerned regulators from several member states. I hope we've answered that question fully. Do you want to add something to how the provisions will be enforced?
In the meantime, we received the question.
This is sort of the question as to whether there's a thing, whether there's a unbundling, so to speak, inside the the company.
Yes. So the question is basically saying that companies do own or have access to or generate actually inside information on a permanent basis. So what are the procedures to ensure anything like firewalls, for example, that this information is not flowing freely within the entities? Now, we need to say that we don't have in this proposal any detailed unbundling rules, if you want, how to disentangle different functions within an energy company. But what the consequence of our measures will be that indeed companies will have to deal with information flow within their integrated companies, and they will consequently have to put in place measures that allow for them to control the flow of inside information. If that is not given, this information